where I was stranded at home out in Guatemala because I didn't have my transportation. And then here it's like catch an Uber, drive. Jen will be back Tuesday, so next Sunday we'll all be here. Oh. It was fun being gone, but it's even more fun being back home. So, just before I get started, there's a couple announcements. Catechism, which is something I'm completely new to, starts in October, so I've been told. And we're going to kind of navigate that together. So stay tuned. And then I think, Elder, do you have an announcement? Something at the end?
You normally announce it before. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have a picnic this coming Saturday,
right?
Where we are planning to pass our church's tracts to people in the park. Actually, the tracts come.
Why don't you come up here?
Okay.
Why don't you come up here and share with us? It's exciting stuff. We're gonna be at a park, handing out tracts.
Tracts, right?
Doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So actually, the tracts came with the poster, but I couldn't find the poster, so I'm gonna read the poster to you all, okay? As some kind of encouragement why we have to pass the tract. We may have been born again Christians for decades. However, if we do not tell the good news, we are being disobedient Christians. We may have spent years and years serving the Lord and supporting mission organizations. However, if we don't tell the good news, we are being disobedient servants. We should have done these things without ignoring the others. Telling the good news is mandatory. It's not optional. It's not even elective. Jesus' last words, so wherever you go in the world, tell everyone the good news. It's in Mark 16:15. And this is a good tip from Billy Graham. I did quote it. Okay. Now my cell phone is frozen. Okay. Please bear with me.
You're fine.
Yeah, it's been acting up lately. Yeah, hopefully this is going to help us, see how important it is to. Please bear with me. Okay. Telling the good news is mandatory, it's not optional, it is...
A series which starts off today, and it's actually titled Influencers, and we're going to look at that, this topic all throughout the month, and I wanted to start with part 1, Daniel. And there's a it's kind of fascinating, but there's actually such a thing as a job called influencer nowadays, and some people are making a ton of money from it, a ton of money. I don't know, I just thought about it because, well, I thought about influencers a while back, but it was actually yesterday when I was at one of my clients' office, and we had to pay influencers, like 13 of them, who use social media to advertise and market this brand called Milk and Eggs, and so it was fascinating. Some people charge like $50 for like a quick post, and some people charge $500 for a post. And it all depends on their following, how much followers they actually have on their social media channels. And so that's why this next slide, I just talked about an influence world. We definitely live in an influence world where you literally do not have to leave your house to be of an influence, because we have platforms such as Instagram, which follow, #follow, Pinterest, which is
YouTube.
Yeah, you have YouTube, and then you have this Twitter style Facebook. And it's so amazing to see that, right? How much people are being, how much of our thoughts, how much of our sort of map of life. Some of us call it philosophy of life. how much of it comes from influencers? How much comes from influence? And so it's so interesting the time that we live in. In this next slide, I'm going to show this because we're going to talk about us as influencers today. And Scott Adams said, you don't have to be a person of influence to be influential. In fact, the most influential people in my life are probably not even aware of the things that they've taught me. And the second quote I want to read to you guys is David McKay, and it says, children are more influenced by sermons you act than by sermons you preach. And this is amazing, this first thought, because I knew I was going to talk about this today, and so I started early this morning. I said to you guys, I've got to talk to 3 people this morning already. My day started kind of early, and I remember I was telling my friend who came back from his wedding and honeymoon from the Dominican Republic, and I said, you know what's fascinating about young married couples is that maybe not right now, maybe we don't see it right now, but 15 years from now, if we take care of our marriage, if we protect that holy circle that we're part of, this holy team that we're part of with our spouses, I said 15 years from now, we will be able to tell what kind of impact, what kind of influence we had on not just our family, but our world, our society. Because we all know, and this is known to be a fact, that healthy families create healthy societies. Broken families create broken societies. This is a no-brainer. This is sociology 101. Is where there are healthy environments of families, there are healthy environments of communities. And so I remember I told this to my friend. I said, 50 years from now, we'll look back. Today, it might not feel like it. Today, it might not feel like we're actually making an impact, a contribution to society. It might not feel like it. It might just feel like I'm going out with my wife, I'm loving her, and we get to do fun stuff together, and then we get to raise children together, and then that's it. That's all that it seems like we're doing. Yet, little do we know that with our actions, with our everyday living, we're actually impacting society, and we're shaping it 15 years from now. If I'm able to successfully raise 2 boys in a healthy family environment, those 2 boys, because they're going to be emotionally healthy, they're going to be a contribution, a positive contribution to the surroundings of their future. When they're at school, when they go off to college, when they go into the workforce, they will be of good influence to others. And I am making a part of that. I am taking part in that by just raising them. So today it might seem like I'm just raising them, like I'm just telling Lucas, no, don't touch that. No, Lucas, stop, get off of there. Mateo, stop it, don't take that. It might seem like I'm just doing a whole lot of that, which I am doing a whole lot of that. But really what I'm doing is by being a father, I'm actually contributing to tomorrow's society, to what it's going to look like. So Scott Adams put it the best. You don't need to be a person of influence. You don't need to be given a platform to be influential. Because a lot of what you and I do and say on a daily basis influences our surroundings. Lastly, of course, that's fine. Actually, we're going to look at this Bible story. So if you have your Bibles, if you have your app, why don't we open up to Daniel chapter 8. And I just wrote down the verse because I actually want us to read this. Actually, Daniel chapter 1, verse 8, not chapter 8. And in Daniel, and I'll give you guys a quick little history background because I like doing that kind of stuff. But I said, this is basically the big idea of this passage that we're going to read. It's really your choice on how to live influences the environment around you, whether you intend on it or not. And so we're going to see Daniel's story is basically this. Daniel's a young man living in Israel. When Israel is overtaken by Babylon, the great empire, because that's what it was all about. In fact, that's what it's still all about. It's just a little bit more subtle now. But it's always been about taking over new kingdoms. It's always been like that. And powerhouses, power kingdoms throughout history, like the Babylonian kingdom, like then the Greek Empire, and then the Roman Empire. A lot of it has to do with taking over entire nations. And so Israel is a victim of this around the time of Daniel. And one day they're just hanging out and Babylon decides to come in and led by this king, Nebuchadnezzar. Everybody say Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar.
Say Nebuchadnezzar. Awesome. So this king decides I'm going to take over Israel. And he gets there and he conquers the land. And then he says to some of his military leaders, says, hey, by the way, pick out some guys, some young men. Let's bring them back home. Let's make them our own. Let's bring them back. And we know that the Israelites have enough men that if we take them out of their land and we bring them back to our land, they will become like us. They will be one of us instead of being Israel. So they on purpose take young men with them. And amongst that pack, one of the first exiles, one of the first groups of the Babylonian exile, when they take Israel's peoples over to Babylon, Daniel's in the midst of them. And Daniel's just a young man. He's just a young dude. Doesn't seem to have anything really sparkling about him. He just happens to be part of the pack that gets taken over to Babylon. And then the king says, "Hey, listen." He tells his chief, one of his chiefs. He says, "Hey, listen. I want you to grab these men. I want you to train them up in the Babylonian way. I want you to polish them. I want you to put them through the academy of growth here in Babylon. And I want them to become men that will serve my empire." And so they do just that. And so Daniel is caught in the middle of being trained to become a servant of Babylon, to be a part of that kingdom, and to serve Nebuchadnezzar's ultimate goals, which was to keep taking more land. It was crazy. It's pretty heavy stuff. And in verse 8, so Daniel and a bunch of other young men, they get taken to the king's palace, and they're going to be raised there. Think about it as military school. Nobody ever here has been to military school, neither have I, but I've heard of it. You basically don't get to go home. You get to live where you go to school, you eat there, you live there. You don't see mom and dad often. They come over the weekends, or you could go out on the weekends. And so this was the case for Daniel. And so Daniel decides, and he says, "Okay, this is my reality, this is where I'm at." Daniel's not thinking about running a brand new political campaign. He's not thinking about escaping. He's not thinking about doing anything crazy. The only thing that Daniel decides to do is he says, "Hey," verse 8, let's read it on. And he says, "But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank." So they're about to start giving him the food from the king. There's no real reason why. We don't see it specifically in this passage why he wouldn't want to eat the king's food. Some people say, well, it's because it was offered to, it was sacrificed to idols, and then it was going to be given to them. Some people say that. Again, we don't get a clearer picture of it, but for whatever reason, Daniel decided, he resolved, I'm just not going to eat that kind of stuff. And he talks and he says, verse 9, and he says, or part B of verse 8, he says, "Therefore he asked the chief of the eunuchs to allow him not to defile himself. And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of eunuchs." Verse 10, "And the chief of eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear, my lord, the king, who assigned your food and your drink. For why should he see that you were in worse condition than the youths who are of your own age?" Hey, listen, you asking me to give you a different kind of food might get me in trouble. In fact, it might get my head chopped off. This is what the chief is telling Daniel. Like, I know you don't want to eat this kind of food, but listen, if you don't look as healthy, as good as the other young men who are eating the king's food, I'm going to be in trouble. And then Daniel responds and he says, this is fascinating. I mean, talk about sweet talker. Listen to this. "Then Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of eunuchs had assigned over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah." Verse 12, "Test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink." Verse 13, "Then let our appearance and our appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you. So test us out. Give me vegetables, give them chicken and meat, and then after 10 days, check us both out, inspect us, and let's see who looks better." And he says, "Let us be given vegetables." And then he says, at the end of 10 days, verse 15, it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food. So there's a whole bunch of dudes, there's a whole bunch of people, and they decided to eat healthier than these guys. And so at the end of 10 days, they looked better. Verse 16, I want us to narrow in on this. "So the steward took away their food and the wine they were drinking and gave them vegetables." Let me pray. God, I thank you for just this platform, this moment that I have to share your word. Father, I pray that I would do it with just a kind heart that really just wants to encourage, wants to build, which is what you're calling us to. And Father, I pray that we may understand the way that we can be of an influence. And let us see that our lives actually do matter, in the sense that someone and somewhere, someone's always watching, and we can make either a good or a bad impact. So Father, I pray that you will speak to our hearts, that you will speak to our minds. In Christ's name, amen. So the steward took away their food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables. Listen, Daniel made one choice. One choice. Daniel didn't need to change how everyone was going to eat. That's not what he intended. In fact, we don't see Daniel really wanting to change everybody's menu. He just wanted to change his own menu. Daniel didn't intend on making this chief change the way they were going to receive packaged food to give out to this camp of young Israelites that were going to serve the king eventually. That's not what Daniel was trying to do. Daniel was trying to do one simple thing, and that was simply not defile himself. The only thing Daniel intended to do was for him to eat healthy food and not to have everyone's menu changed. And so this is why we conclude out of this passage, this whole story, that your choice on how to live influences the environment around you. If you choose to be a liar on a daily basis, your environment is going to be jam-packed with lies. If you choose to be unkind, unpleasant, rude, and obnoxious, you're going to create yourself an environment of all the things I just mentioned. On the flip side, if you decide to make choices of integrity, choices that are packed with kindness towards others, choices that are jam-packed with honesty, guess what kind of environment you will have? That's who you create. Your choices create an environment for you, whether you intend on it or not. Whether you want to be influential, whether you want to change the world or not, your daily decisions, as tiny as they may be, create environment, which creates contribution to social beings. This is the bottom line. Many a times, we won't think of our lives ever being that important. And it makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense. If we go about our lives thinking that no one really gets impacted by us, chances are you will only make your decisions with one rule in mind. How does this work for me? You're never thinking about how does this work for my neighbor? How does my decision work for that person that I'm one day going to be married? Is my choice of being pure, we don't necessarily always think about it as, well, what is my future spouse going to have in me? What are my kids going to be able to taste and see from daddy and mommy? We don't ever see it that way because it's so easy to think that our lives are not creating an environment. And Daniel, to our surprise, all he wanted to do was not defile himself, and yet he ended up setting the tone for what everybody in that military home, in that training, was going to eat. He basically set the tone for what everybody else was going to get to taste and see. He didn't think of it that way, and this is why I have to make a strong emphasis on this, because most of the time we're not out on a daily basis. It's kind of hard to find people that on a daily basis really feel and really believe that they're out to change the world. It's really hard. Normally, I'll be honest, I'd say me. On any given Wednesday, I wake up to either Mateo or Lucas jumping on the bed or asking for milk or, they're always up to something at like 6 in the morning for some reason. And normally when I wake up, I'm not thinking, yes, I'm going to go out and conquer the world. Normally I'm thinking like, I wish you were still asleep so I could get another 15 minutes. So normally it is not normal for people to wake up thinking, I'm going to change the world today. Or my decision is going to really impact my future. Or my children's future. Or my friend's children's future who's younger than I am. We don't walk around like that. That's not normal. Normal is to think, what am I going to eat for breakfast? Normal is to think, oh gosh, I'm running late to work again. Oh gosh, I'm running late to first period again. Normal is, oh gosh, did I finish my homework? Oh man, I might have not. So I got to wake up at like 5 in the morning to finish my homework. That's normal. That is normal. And this is why I'm speaking about influencers throughout the whole month. Because it's so normal to view our lives as, I'm not influential. I'm not I just kind of mind my own business. And though Daniel, it appeared like he was just minding his own business. I just want to eat vegetables, bro. Like, that's all I'm trying to do. Yet, little did he know that his decision was about to set the tone, not just for the way they were going to eat, but you'll see throughout the book of Daniel, all over the place, the dude sets the tone for the way people in the kingdom were going to be treated. It's crazy to think, my small little decision isn't that big of a deal, is it, Christian? To which I would say, actually, now that I know what I know, it is. What you choose to study will make an impact on somebody's life 10 years from now. Whether you like it or not, whether you plan on it or not. Because influence is not something that we gain throughout time. Influence is something that we were born with. Influence, again, within its respective way of viewing it. It's not something you gain throughout time. Yes, is there a way you can gain more influence? Yes, you can always gain more influence. But influence standing alone, you don't gain it. You're born with it. Your decisions are creating an environment around you, whether you like to look at it that way or not. And next slide makes my point. We are all influencers. Big or small, this is so key. If you hear anything throughout today, hear this. Big or small, our decisions produce influence. If you are a person that views even your smallest decision as just something that impacts only you, you are totally wrong. Your smallest of decisions are influence. If you're an older brother, clearly you have influence. If you are an older friend, you have influence. Some of you guys are seniors in high school. Influence. Some of you guys are bosses at work. Influence. For some of us that are parents, influence. The way that I talk to Genesis, it's going to influence the way Lucas and Mateo think they could speak to her too. The way she talks to me, the way that she views me, is going to influence the way that Mateo and Lucas get to adopt how they view me, because we're always surrounded with opportunity to influence. And all we had to do was be alive and be able to make decisions. We are all influencers. All of us create a tone. All of us set an environment wherever it is that we are. Wherever it is that we are. We need to think of it this way. We need to think of it this way. Every day. It is said that we make over 300 decisions in just morning time, in the first 4 hours. 300 decisions. The average person, 300 decisions. What to wear, what to look at, all sorts of things. And it makes sense. It makes a ton of sense. When you think about it, within the first 4 hours of our lives, we have 300 opportunities. 300 opportunities to set the tone for our environment. Yesterday was a clear picture for me. I got home. I woke up, fairly rested, had a meeting at 11. And then I remember I called my father and said, hey, I will take you out to lunch, take you out to breakfast, whatever. Finished my meeting, I head over to my father's place, and my dad's been with the idea of wanting to move back home to Guatemala for years. His wife, however, thinks a little bit differently. And so, I started, obviously everyone's asking me, how did it go? How's Guatemala? I'm like, it's great. There's a lot of good stuff over there. And we were sitting down, we were about to eat, and I started talking a little bit more about Guatemala than I hoped. And my father sort of starts hinting to my stepmom, who was also there, starts hinting like, you see, it's not that bad to leave. And right away I saw the tension. And you know what I did? I changed the conversation. I was able, in the small stuff, insignificant, at least not in my presence was there going to be another tension between them two. Not in my presence. I was able to choose what I wanted to talk about. It might seem just very insignificant, but yet the amount of influence we all carry every day is huge. Next slide. This leads me to my next point. We can choose how to influence. Do we want to, at work, at school, in our families, we would be a good influence or a bad one? All the time, always guaranteed. At work, right? Hey man, I'm going to be on time. And one day, when people are around me, they're going to think it's normal to be on time. Austin's always here on time, so that must be normal. But imagine, if you're always late everywhere, if you're late to class, if you're late to work, if you're late to your meeting, if you're late to a date with your spouse, one day, people around you will think, oh, that must be normal. Saying that you're going to be at 7 and showing up at 7:20 must be normal, because we see Christian doing it all the time. That looks normal. Doesn't seem like he ever gets in trouble. Doesn't seem like anyone's ever mad. Maybe they are mad, but they never tell him. It must be normal. Now, is it normal to claim that you're going to be there at 7 and always show up at 7:20? No, that's not normal. That's breaking your word all the time. All of us, we get to choose how we influence. We get to choose that every day. We get to choose it. If we start doing things that seem out of the norm, eventually people will start thinking that it's normal. It's normal to be disrespectful to elders. If that's the tone that you set. But it's normal to talk back to mom and dad. Because so-and-so does it all the time, and that seems kind of normal. Yeah, he probably gets smacked around for it by his dad, but still does it, so it must be kind of normal to get smacked around. We get to choose how much we can contribute for better or for worse to the societies around us. We get to do that. Again, because influence is not something you gain, it is something that you're born with. It might be on a smaller scale, and yes, there's such thing as gaining more influence. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. As you get older, you get to influence more people. It's going to be right now you might just be influencing a friend of yours. Tomorrow it'll be a team of friends. The next day it'll be a group of work employees. And the next thing you know, you're influencing your wife, and now you're influencing your kids because you've gotten older and you started having a family. We always get to influence. The key thing is, how are you going to choose to influence? What are you going to do about the fact that you actually get to set the tone around you? What kind of tone are you going to set in your surroundings? Are people going to be around you and be like, man, this is the safest, emotionally and mentally, being around Caesar is the safest thing to be around. No, physically, Austin's always one to protect. It's the safest environment to be around. I am never made fun of when I'm around Esau. Boy, that guy is fun. Boy, that guy is sincere. What kind of influence are you creating? Because you get to create it every day. As a father, one day you will be one. Some of us are already. What kind of influence are we giving on to our children? As an older brother, what kind of influence are you giving to your younger siblings? Some of us like sports because our brothers like sports. That's the case with me. Why did I love the Lakers in the early 2000s? I didn't care about basketball. But I had an older brother who was like a fan, bro. He was older. He understood more. He knew Michael Jordan. I didn't get to see Michael Jordan. I didn't care about basketball when I was 5 years old. He was like a nut for him. Kobe, oh my gosh. The only reason why I had a vivid picture of what winning a championship in Los Angeles was like for the Lakers was because my older brother was like one of the ones that would join the parades when they would win championships. He's one of the ones that would run out to the street when they just won, and he would start like screaming in the whole neighborhood, and then I went behind him. He was influencing me whether he wanted to or not. And this is something as simple as a sport, because we all get to do it. We all get to do it. And lastly, when we do it and we choose how, when you understand, number one, we're all influential one way or another. You got siblings, you got people around you, you got human beings breathing around you, you're influential. Unless you're forever in a box by yourself, you never even get to see people, which that's kind of easy for some people nowadays. With everything delivered at your door, you don't ever have to go out. Second thing, once you understand you're influential, number two, you get to choose how you want to influence. Do I want to be a good influence or do I want to be a bad influence? You only have two choices. Some days, hey listen, I'm one to be aware. Some days you'll make mistakes. Some days you'll be a bad influence. And that was a mistake. And that's fine. There's grace. There's mercy for the next day. So move on. But you get to develop a pattern. You get to develop a pattern. Everything we do is based on patterns. Everything. Some of us have patterns of drinking coffee every day. Sometimes 2 times a day. Some of us have a pattern of working out every day. Some of us have a pattern of playing basketball certain days of the week. Some of us have a pattern of just playing our guitar and just practicing, just jamming out on our own. Some of us have bad patterns, like eating burgers at like 2 in the morning. No, I didn't do it this week, actually. We went out to Tommy's late night a couple nights ago. I had like a couple fries and half a burger. But anyway, some of us have bad habits. Some of us are in the habit of being rude to people around us. Maybe sometimes because we're angry with ourselves, or we just can't seem to get over certain things and we just treat people around us. Regardless of this, you get a choice every day. And here's the bottom line. Here's the end of it. We will be surrounded by how we influence. This is sort of like the law of reaping and sowing, right? If you're constantly reaping disrespect, don't be upset when there's disrespect all around you. If you're constant with kindness, don't be surprised when even strangers tend to be kind. Because here's the bottom line. Our immediate circumstances will be determined by our actions. Your immediate circumstance was chosen by or put out by a combination of choices that you've made in the past. This is the bottom line. I told my cousin this morning, hey, listen. He went through a really bad breakup, 3 boys, and he has 3 sons. And I said, we started our conversation, he's been wanting to talk to me. I said, how many years did it take for you to get to where you're at right now, split? He looked at me and he said, 16. I said, if you want to restore it, be prepared to invest the same amount of years to make it right. To which he because this is true. We are in a circumstance of our decisions. 100% of the time. 100% of the time. I'll point this out, but you guys sounded magical worshiping. It was great. It was dope. It was good. It's just sitting here. I was like, dude, you're really just jamming out. I was able to worship. Well, the reason why my circumstance, the reason why your guys' surroundings was an environment of worship was because you guys have made choices to practice. Because you were in piano lessons for how many years? That's the circumstance, too long. That's the circumstance you created. You may be gifted with a voice, but if you don't practice, if you don't take care of it, if you drink whatever that you want and you ruin your chords, you're not sounding that good. I'm sorry. And Caesar, you're not doing this to the box unless you practice. You guys created an environment and a circumstance of worship that was enjoyable to others, all because one day you had no clue. When that teacher of yours was telling you what knows to me, you had no clue that one day a young man by the name of Cristian Jerez at 26 years old was going to get to enjoy worshiping his Creator over sounds that you were making. Because we're never looking at life that way. It's so easy. Nah, this doesn't matter. It's just, it doesn't matter. No one's watching. No one cares. Little did you know. Many years later, your circumstance, our surroundings, your environment, I was going to be able to enjoy an environment of worship because you put in the time. Practice. And this is true about everything else in life. This is true about everything else in life. So remember, number 1, we're all influencers. Big or small, we're all influencers. We all influence somebody, and we all create an environment. We all do. Second thing, you get to choose how you do it. Now that you're aware, wait, I'm an influencer. Now that you're aware, you get to choose how to do it. Tomorrow, you will have an opportunity to make hundreds of choices. And all that will create the environment. So you're choosing how to influence. You get to choose that kind of stuff, dude. This is why I said to my cousin today, it is the most devastating thing we could ever experience. The most devastating thing we could ever experience is people rejecting to live away and apart from God's Lordship. Here's why. Because if you don't let the Creator handle it, if you don't let the Creator be the one that sets the tone for you, all we got is a fallen nature making choices. So I said to him, just look around the world. Why is it so upside down? Because so many people have said no to God. I said, no, we got this, bro. Move away. You're all a fantasy. And so they've decided to make the choices upon themselves. With a sinful nature that's constantly inclining towards sin, I'm sorry, but that is dangerous, and that is why we're so upside down. That That's why we're so upside down. So we get to choose number 2. We get to choose how we influence. And number 3, tomorrow, 10 years from now, you will look around your life. You will look around your life and you'll be like, this is what I created. What's it going to be? Last time. So what's it going to be? What's it going to be 10 years from now? What are you creating? What are you building? The way you're influencing. What are you building? What kind of building are you building? What kind of house are you putting together? What kind of 10 years from now are you working on, and how are you doing it? That's done by your daily decisions. That simple. Daniel, all he wanted to do was not defile himself, and yet he ends up setting the menu for everyone around him. He influenced whether he wanted to or not. He made a choice not to defile himself. He chose how he wanted to influence. And number 3, his environment was a product of his choices. So remember, you too, today, Daniel's no longer here. And the people we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks, they're no longer here. Now, all the world has is you and me. All the people at your high school, all they have is not Daniel. That's a great story. It's fascinating stuff. But they don't have, the Daniel's not here anymore. They got Ethan, they got Esau, they got Austin. That's what they have. They have Esau. They have Josh. This is what they have. So what kind of influence are you going to set? What kind of environment are you going to build? All of us before the Creator will one day respond. We'll give account for the kind of environments we chose to set. So my urgence, my encouragement, my prayer, my hope is that you would choose to influence well. That you would choose to sow seeds of kindness, of generosity, of patience. Make a better place around us. I always say this, I'm too small, I'm too weak, and I'm so limited to make a real dent in the world by myself. Too small. I only got like 80 years. If I live to 100, 106, that might be a little too old. Listen, I hope to think I got 60 years left or 70 years left. But I don't know that. I might only have 5. I don't know. I might only have a week. My mission in life has been, I do not want to ever think that I am going to change the world by myself or make it a better place. I cannot do that. So my goal is to encourage and to speak into the life as many people would let me so that they can contribute to a better tomorrow with me. Because I can't do it all on my own. So we're all influencers. What kind of environments are we going to set? What will we be remembered for as we live out our lives? Think about your grandparents or the people that have come before you. How do you remember them? I remember my grandma as someone that always had a plate ready for me. Every time I would come over our house, there was always something served on the table. Beans, rice, chicken, meat. There was always food. She set such an influence for me that it created that in me. So now when people come over, my hope is to at least offer a bottle of water. She instilled that in me. She had no clue. All she thought she was doing was she was just serving her grandson some food. She did not know that she was setting a norm in my head. Something that seems normal now, which is if someone comes to visit you, you offer them something. Chips, soda, whatever. Right? I'm not a cook. I actually cooked chicken this week. It was bomb. I still got some. You can come over and try it. Guys, we're all influencing. Do not miss out. Do not miss out on being a good influence in the surroundings around you. Let's all bow our heads. Let's all close our eyes. As we bring it into a close, God, God, we are responsible for a lot of things. And there's no way, God, we could step out and do it all on our own. There's no way. We're limited. We're so human. God, we're so human. But I thank you so much for giving us your Spirit. The same Spirit that rose Jesus from the grave, God. It's the same Spirit that is within us. And so, God, I pray that just this Saturday is going to be a great day. We're going to be at a park. We're going to be evangelizing. We're going to be telling people about Jesus. We don't know how that's going to go. You have to get in the mix for it to go well. So we're going to trust you with that. But tomorrow, God, and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to have opportunities to proclaim who God is with my actions. I'm going to be able to tell people how kind God is by my own kindness. I'm going to be able to talk about God's patience through my own patience with others. Because this is how it works. So Father, my prayer is that we would all be fully convinced that we get to set tones around us. That we would not be for not 1 second irresponsible with our own lives and think that the only people that are affected is us. God, may our hearts and our minds be fully aware that everything we choose to do one day trickle down and impact people that will come after us. So I pray, God, that we would choose well, that you would empower us, that you would give us strength to do things right. I pray for your mercies when we go wrong, for your forgiveness when we make mistakes, when we choose badly. I pray, God, that your mercy and your grace would suffice there, and that we would always find a way to bounce back, to get back on our feet, and to keep marching forward. And I thank you because the cross is the one thing that makes this possible. To fall and stand up again is all because the cross was laid out for us. So Father, we thank you for that. And we thank you for this time in Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. All right. Now